and welcome to Day Home Divas. I'm Joanne.
I'm Cash.
And I'm Sophia.
This episode, we are speaking with Vidya. They are in the process of opening a private daycare center, and that process has now been affected dramatically by the government's announcement that there is no more funding for private daycare centers due to the cap that is in place by the federal government. Welcome to the podcast, Vidya, and we thank you for being here.
Thanks, Joanne, for actually inviting me here and giving me an opportunity to express my thoughts and I guess in this particular case, some anxiousness around the process.
Oh, absolutely. From what I've been seeing, it seems to be causing a lot of issues for a lot of people. So, Vidya, is this your first daycare center or do you own any others?
I do own another one. It's down at Okotoks, and this is actually going to be our second one, and it's in the Beltline area.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a background in ECE?
Yes, I do. I used to be an educator before, and then went off to do to work in corporate environment for a while, and then decided this was my passion and came back to this.
That's amazing.
Oh, nice. That is amazing. Corporate to children. Children are just easier to talk to, aren't they? And
I would
adults.
say I would say in some cases they are for sure.
Than the corporate people.
I
Children
was
are
gonna
For
way
say,
sure. And
easier.
they're just more fun when you're talking to them, I would
They
say.
are so much fun. Okay, what made you want to open a daycare center?
Well, I think a couple of factors. Like I said, there was just the passion that I found in it and decided that that's something I would want to do. Exposure to corporate also wanted me to, wanted kind of had this need in me to go in and own something of my own and have the ability to run it, make those decisions myself, have something that was truly my vision. And that's really what was the primary factor between opening a daycare versus going back to working at a daycare.
Right.
Well, and if you have the credentials, why don't you?
Exactly, right? Exactly. And to me, I just felt it brought all my skill sets together as well, right? The ability to work with children, the ability to work with people. And I think more, as I said, more importantly, it was I had a vision for how I want to be putting together this education package and just felt that this is where I had the freedom to do it completely as I wanted it to be if I owned it.
yeah, exactly. It's so much better be the business owner than
Mhm.
that way, like you say, you can have it, your vision, have it come out the way that you want it, right?
Right. Right. Exactly. So anyway, so that's really where this whole idea of getting into it came, and I like the process of what we did with our center down in Okotoks, and that's what really spiraled us to go and look at opening up another center, but something that's more inner city Calgary. We felt there was a need in the area. There are a lot of daycares coming there in the Beltline area, but there's also a lot of people moving into the area. There's a lot of construction for family homes in there as well. And so we just felt, and it usually, the Beltline in our experiences tends to be the spot where people moving into the city actually come into. They come in there, they get an understanding of where the city is, what needs to be done, and then they decide to move somewhere else. Now, while that's been the pattern for the longest time, we're also seeing a slight change in the fact that a lot of people are choosing to stay in the Beltline area as well as kids are growing up and choosing to live in apartments or townhouses versus independent family homes. So we just felt there was definitely a demand in the area.
Right. Um, so what stage are you at, like in the process of opening that center?
So we are going to be completed with our construction in probably another 3 weeks here. And so our plan was to open August, September of this year. And we've gone through a lot of issues to get us to this point. Our DP application actually went in back in August of last year. And
Okay.
there were delays on the DP side because the planner that we got just took forever. And
Right,
so our DP process was about 3 months. And then we went in for our BP in January of this year, and that took another 3 months.
right,
So, everything's been longer. It's been a lot more time. It's been a lot of effort, a lot of stress on all of us. And then we finally started our construction early April, and we're almost done there, right?
right.
We just have 3 more weeks to go. And then we're ready to go down to have all our inspections, such as occupancy, fire, health, and so on. So again, nowhere in this process did we ever get any indication, that anything was going to get stopped or any indication about how much of these spaces were filled.
Right.
Right. I think back even yesterday, I was thinking about this and I thought, you know, a month ago, if this had been a month ago, I might have had the opportunity to walk away from it.
Yeah.
And now I just don't. I feel like we're kind of in that half pregnant mode, right? I can't walk. I just can't at this point in time.
Yeah.
There's already significant amount of money that's capital investment that's gone into the location. And I don't have a choice. I'm left with no choice, really.
Oh, exactly. The government definitely dropped the ball on this. I mean, they knew they had a certain amount of spaces that were allowed for private daycare centers. And I feel at some point they should have been monitoring where they were at, like how many, like you can allow so many. So why not keep everybody in the loop?
Well, and what really irks me is just from my background, right? I'm a very process person, and all the provincial government really had to do is make one step, one change to the process that they have in today, really to manage this. It would not have been a huge change for anybody, really. All they had to do was literally send out the word saying, anytime you've got your DP, send us your licensing application at that point.
Yeah.
And hold off till we let you know if you've got spaces. And each and every one of us would have adhered to it,
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
right? Because at that point, at the DP point, if they came back and said, hey, Vidya, we can't give you any more spaces, we're all filled out, I would have been able to just walk away from it.
Yeah.
Right? And many others like myself would have been able to do that. So it was just a small tweak in the existing process today that really did not need a lot of change management around it either. If they had just done that, this would have been it. We wouldn't be going through all this anxiety, and we wouldn't be finding ourselves in the situation that we're in. And I feel like it's the laziness of the government not to have done that small step.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate the Alberta government is going to take a lot of flack for this, but initially it's the federal government that put the cap in how many private spaces there can be. But the Alberta government definitely dropped the ball as far as keeping track of how many of those spaces are used up and keeping people informed for sure. So it's basically
Yeah, no,
both
absolutely.
levels.
I think there's two issues in the picture here, right? In my opinion, of course. There's one about even having a cap, right?
Yeah.
That's from a federal spot. Like I fundamentally don't think that it should be a cap on the daycares. I mean, end of the day, this is money that's supposed to support the parents. This is
Yep.
supposed, the whole idea with the whole affordability grant was to ensure that people can get back into the workplace, they can go back to school to upskill themselves, so that eventually it feeds into the productivity of the country, of the province, right? So that's really the fundamental of the affordability grant. So the fact that it is being implemented in a way where it's being given to the daycares as such in itself, whether it's for profit or not, does not seem to make sense for me. This grant should be actually given to a parent. It should be given to a child. In my
Yep.
opinion, a child should have that grant, and parents should have the ability to choose where they send that child,
Oh,
right?
100%.
Which program fits their needs, which program meets the requirements of their family.
Yeah.
And where the child goes, the center gets that grant. That's really how this should work. And
Exactly.
if anything, that would drive a lot of the operators to up their game and make sure they are providing the best that they can for the families.
Oh,
So
that's
to me, that's the solution that should be in place, or that's how this whole ideology, this vision needs to be implemented, and that was not done. So that's a bigger, I think, a much larger issue from a federal perspective that I think is definitely at play. And that's a larger piece, right? But in the short term, the fact that the provincial government did not manage the communication and the filling of the spaces is also what's, contributed to us, a lot of operators like myself finding ourselves in this situation. So I just think there's two levels to this problem, and there's two solutions. There's a short term that potentially might have to be put in place till whatever that April decision is. And then there is obviously the longer term piece about why is it even going to the centers to begin with?
Oh, 100%.
We,
As a
we, yeah.
yeah,
We say
as
this all the time, all the time. Joanne, actually, you put it on one of the ladies in that town hall meeting,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I'll let her tell
exactly.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, basically, I just, why does the money not go directly to the parents?
Yeah.
We run a private day homes,
Yeah.
so we're excluded from this. And if it's meant to be about quality, about the kids, like quality of care, who monitors that? The parents. The parents know if their kids are in a quality childcare space because of how their child is responding to that space that they're in. And it's not up to the government to decide who gets to look after our kids. As
Yep.
parents,
Yep.
we decide that. So this money should not be going to any center at all. For profit, not for profit, doesn't matter. This money should be going directly to the parents because they keep talking there's this huge need for childcare spaces, that there's
Yep.
there's so many people on waiting lists, but they're not doing anything about it. Not any logical decisions are being made. All they need to
Yep.
do is put the money directly in the parents' hands, the same as they do
Yep.
with their child benefit checks, the same way. Put the money direct into their hands. We all pay taxes. They know what
Yep.
day homes and daycare centers are out there.
Yep.
Give us everybody a number. If they're worried about how do they track it, give everybody like a business number. And that's what the parents claim that on. That's how they can check, yep, the money is going to childcare. And then the parents get to choose. And I'm telling you, the quality of childcare will increase drastically.
Oh, absolutely, right? Because that's the kind of competition that you want to see happening, right?
Exactly.
You want to see competition that is going to up the quality of the services that you provide, that's going to keep childcare providers on their toes, making sure they're bringing the best to the children in their care and the families in their care. And that's really what's going to drive it, not saying that, hey, you're a childcare you're a childcare operator and I'll give you 80 for-profit spaces. What we will find, I'm sure if we did an audit right now, is there are many spaces that are sitting empty right now
Yep.
that have been approved for the affordability grant because they're either in spaces where there's already a lot of competition or there's a lot of daycares around and not enough demand, or alternatively, they are probably not providing the level of service that they should be. The quality is just not there, and parents have chosen not to put their kids there. But there's a lot sitting empty as well. So there's one side of the story where, of course, there are areas where there are lots of wait lists, but there's also areas where there's obviously a lot of availability as well, right? I
Exactly.
can tell you, Okotoks is one of those areas where in the past year and a half, a lot of daycares have popped up, right? And not all of them are sitting full,
Yep. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And that's exactly where I'm going with this is that so we have that issue as well where there's just sitting empty, but they have the affordability grant. And that I think is fundamentally what is wrong with the way this is being implemented.
Yeah.
If it is for the parents, if it is for the families, it should be given to them. And I mean, long term with this situation, the biggest problem is that choice has been taken away from parents.
Oh,
I know as
100%.
operators, there are many of us that are absolutely desolate about the situation we find ourselves in. And there are many of us who won't have the ability to continue funding or having the operating costs for the daycare till a decision comes in April. But I would also like to look at it saying not minimizing the situation we all find ourselves in. But the bigger problem here is that there is choice that has been taken away from the families.
Oh, exactly. And I mean, not every center works out for a parent for whatever reason, right? Not
Exactly.
so they need to have that choice. And we've talked a lot about daycare centers that have had not great conditions, and there's been a lot of parents that are using those centers, but they don't want to, but they just have no other choice. And that's unfortunate.
Right.
And that's the position the government has put parents in and is basically putting kids in unsafe conditions for lack of choice, right? It's affordability over the quality that the parents want. And that the government should never have put parents in this position at all. And more importantly, they should not have put kids in this position.
No, absolutely agree. So yeah, so that's how I see it, Joanne, is that there is a short-term issue, which is just the viability of a lot of businesses. I mean, the numbers are astounding, right? Like we've done a few surveys, we've got some numbers, and there's 150 plus operators that have been affected, which what that really means is people who have spent money in construction and are in that process of I don't have a choice but to finish this off because I've got loans and
Yeah,
so on as well, right? So 150 operators across Alberta who are affected by this, right? You're looking at 70 million plus dollars of capital investment that could likely end up being stranded investments
yeah,
that people might have to walk away from. There is 36 million annual lease agreements ongoing for the next 10 years, right? That's at stake at this point,
right.
right? Now, those are not small numbers that the government, has the ability to look away from. These are investments into the economy of Alberta
Yeah.
that small business owners have put in. And majority of the daycares are actually women owned
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
and creating close to 2,000 women-centric jobs.
Yeah. And honestly,
So,
those numbers are probably going to rise when people that are not quite at the stages yet that don't realize that this is going to happen, probably people that are not aware. So
yep.
those numbers are going to climb when everybody hits the spot where they're like, okay, that final spot, right? That lease or that licensing stage. I forget what it's called, but the very final
It's a,
stage,
it's a
right?
licensing
Thank
inspection.
you. Yeah. When they hit that, and then they're told, no, sorry, there's no flat fee funding left.
Well, at least they've made a slight change to it now, and they're saying that so anybody as of May 15th who puts in an application are told right then at that application stage. But the problem is that the way the process is written today, you don't need to put in your licensing application until and unless you're pretty much in the last legs
Exactly.
of your
Yeah.
construction, right? So when you put in your licensing application, usually people are 80% in with the
Yeah.
construction. Your construction
Exactly.
is 80% done,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I see all the time on Facebook people saying, hey, I'm just starting to open a daycare center. And I'm like, no, no, don't do
Exactly.
it. Check into all your, like, into everything first. Yeah. So people, not everybody's aware, unfortunately.
I also feel like the government wanted to fill these spots, so they went fast, 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 and now they're
Yeah.
like, oh shit, I can't fill them.
Yeah.
That's actually very, very, it's interesting that you say that because I was pretty sure that some analyst did some review, a few days before or a couple of weeks before that 15, and people looked at the numbers and said, oh my God. We're there. We didn't track this till now, but we're literally there. So let's just stop. Because I've also been hearing about how a lot of others who'd been dealing with their licensing officers were not getting any responses like about
Yeah.
a week or two before that happened. There were a lot of delays. Licensing officers who were, very helpful, who were communicating with them on a regular basis, just stopped responding.
Yeah, who are absolutely told by their bosses, stop responding, we have a problem. Right? So
Yeah.
that's just ignorant on the government's part for sure.
I know you're almost 3 weeks out. Do you have any families registered for when you were opening?
Yeah, so we have 45 families registered with us and we are trying to figure out what we're going to tell them, right? Because they're all registered with us with so out of the 45, we've got about 10 who are out of school care and are not likely affected by this. But having said that, the remaining 30 odd 35 will definitely be affected. So we're trying to figure out what our strategy is going to be, right, before we start communicating with them.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure that if, because I think internally we're trying to figure out what does our finances look like, and do we have any ability to hold on till April? But I think what is really, really stressful in all of this is not knowing what that end goal is going to look like
Yeah.
either, right? What it's like, okay, if somewhere I got to know, all right, come April you'll get these spots, or come, whatever, September you'll get these spots. Obviously it makes it easier,
Yeah.
but it doesn't. Right now we have no information whatsoever, and other than the fact that there will be conversations that will likely happen in September of this year.
Yeah.
Now that could be the start of conversations, that could be decision. We have no visibility on any of those timelines, or there's no communication milestones in here either. So that's making the whole thing very difficult for us. So I think what we are focusing on right now is, again, ensuring we are finishing construction because we don't have a choice there.
Yeah.
But also trying to figure out what is going to be our strategy and what is going to be our communication to our parents.
Yeah.
My
That's really
anxiety
hard.
couldn't handle the uncertainty.
Oh, right.
No, just not knowing what is happening. All communication has been cut off. What am I going to do? Like, I'm really sorry that's happening to you. That must be very scary.
It is, right? It is. And we were really looking forward to the center because, like I said, we knew there was a need. And so we're getting requests every day. We're getting pre-registrations coming in every day. So, I mean, it's really disheartening to know that we made the right choices in terms of the area. We did our due diligence. We did our research.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that the numbers are coming in, and now we get hit with something like this.
Yeah.
terrible.
Oh, 100%.
So, sorry, I just wanted to know, did you have any staff that you had hired?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, we actually have a director who will be moving across to us, but other than that, we hadn't hired any other staff yet. We were going to be working on that this month.
Okay.
See, and as far as I'm aware, the staff will still get like top ups and all that stuff.
They will.
So that
They will.
helps a little for as far as
Mhm.
being able to staff the center.
Attract staff.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, whether you still got to have kids in the center for that staff, right? But
Yeah.
at least it kind of takes some stress off that area, maybe. The other school care kids, they're not affected by this. Are you able to shift your platform to be specifically for out of school age kids?
We can't. We have a very large center, and there's no way we will be able to. I mean, there's no way we will actually be able to actually make any money at all if we
Right.
completely moved to school, right?
Gotcha.
We always had the intention of being able to take in a combination of kids. So
Right.
one of the things we are looking at is seeing if we can increase our out of school care a bit more, because we've been having some more interest coming in from a couple of parents who are at schools that is a bit further away.
Right.
And we're thinking through that, right? But again,
Mhm.
out of school care also means it's also a lot more on the cost end for
Right.
us,
For sure.
right? With transportations and all of that coming into place.
Yeah. So what is the capacity that your center is for?
We have a capacity of 186.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a
That's
lot.
So
Yeah.
must be very large center.
Yeah.
it is a very large center, and it's a center that, I've really been proud of designing, and trying to make sure it's the quality that we want it to be, and so we've really worked hard at that, and so it's just disheartening.
Do
Yeah.
you
Oh,
find it struggling to hire staff that are qualified? I'm
Um,
really curious about this question because I know that there is a lack of qualified.
I would say yes. And I'm seeing it across the board, right? Just because I know that I've got like I see that in Okotoks, but I'm also seeing that in Calgary, right? Because I think what is happening, or what I feel is happening right now, is a lot of people are doing their level ones, right? And they
Yeah.
do their level ones. They don't have that experience and are looking to gain. So there's a lot of people. So if you go out hiring, I get level ones day in, day out. Like
Everybody's the level
everybody's
one.
at a
Yeah.
level one, right? And then you start moving towards the level twos. And then what I find with the level twos is that there are a lot of people who have moved to doing level twos, but still don't come with experience,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? And there is no requirement for a certain level or certain years of experience for you to be doing a level two or a level three. So pretty much I can finish my level one, move on to level two, do a certain amount of work, any kind of work experience, right? And in childcare, of course. And then I can move on to level three. So I then get, I find there's a lot of educated or leveled educators
Mhm.
coming on board, but not necessarily with the experience that needs to match with that level.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I just wonder if it's because of how we have that program set up, right?
Oh, 100%.
Because, right, because it's like, yeah, you do your level two and then you can move on to your level three. You could get out of level three with having, basic experience. At my center down in Okotoks, I have level ones who are way more experienced than some of
Yep.
my level twos and level threes.
Yep.
And the only reason they've not been able to progress has been very financial.
Yep.
Oh, exactly.
Yep. I believe that 100%.
I
Yep.
mean, the schooling is
Right?
expensive. It takes a lot of time, and the pay isn't matching that expense and time you're putting into schooling. So it makes it hard for people, especially if they've got kids of their own. So now they're paying for their own childcare while they go to school, and
Yeah.
it's just not feasible. I think there needs to be more options. I think if there
Yeah.
was more options to take the courses, say like online or in the evening, but when you have to take the classes like in an institution and during work hours, well, now you can't
Yeah.
do both.
And I think some of those changes are coming along with regards to like the classes being over the weekends. I think what I would like to see is also having some of these classes over the weekends, right? Rather than just the evenings. Because I mean, come on, being a childcare educator is not easy, right?
Yeah,
And and you're spending your day taking care of these kids, spending it takes a lot out of you to be very, very honest, right?
yeah,
And then having to come back home and then immediately have to sit in for a 2 or 3 hour class. It's not easy. It's
no,
not easy. It's a lot of commitment. And I understand it's hard for everybody. But I think what I would also like to see is just some weekend classes, right? Where the providers can actually offer those as options for parents, for the educators who wish to take them.
yeah,
And then the other thing that would be nice to see is just ensuring that there's quality experience that happens during that time.
yeah,
Well, and I think level ones, because it's such a free course, I feel like they need to take something to have some sort of like experience behind it. Like, don't just
yes,
take the level one and be like, hey, I have this now, because there's a lot of people too that go into it and then, oh, this is not what I expected. And it's like, yeah, because you just took a course and you didn't actually go and see it for firsthand.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, so one of the things that we do with what I term as our star educators. So we have a couple who are level ones, and like I said, have come with a lot of experience. Just don't have the level to match that up, and it's been very financial. We try and see how we can support them, right, to be able to move to that next level because you can see the passion in them, you can see the dedication in them, and it's really sad to see it's a financial thing that doesn't help them move forward.
yeah,
Well, that's really nice of you to help.
yeah,
Well,
exactly.
we don't want to lose them either, right?
Yeah.
We are they're valuable members of our team, and we would like to keep them and give them a reason to stay with us as well, right? But more importantly, I think for me is I would like to see them being very successful in their chosen career because I absolutely believe in these individuals and feel that they can contribute a lot to the industry
Yeah.
regardless of which center they'll be at.
Oh,
Yeah.
exactly.
It would be really cool to see something happen at SATE as like an apprentice.
I was
So
gonna
Mhm.
say the same thing.
Yeah.
oh, were you? Great minds
Yeah,
think
no,
alike. So, because
exactly.
my son is going through this right now, right? So you
Yeah.
go to school for 8 weeks and then you work for a year, and you go to school for 8 weeks and you work for a year. And in that 8 weeks, it's very condensed,
Yeah.
intense schooling, right? It would be really neat to see them do something like that, because I think that, you would find a lot more staff becoming qualified if
Yeah.
we ran it that way, right? And then the government lets them go on unemployment
Exactly.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So it's super helpful rather than
Yeah.
having to go to school for years and years and years,
Exactly.
right?
And I mean, honestly, beneficial that way too, right? Like to
Yeah.
everybody,
Hmm.
because daycare centers still get to keep their staff. They only need to cover backup staff for 8 weeks instead of
Correct.
losing them for however long while they're right now
Yeah.
how it works, right? And then the student, they get to, like you say, claim unemployment for the 8 weeks. So they're not completely out of loss of income as well. And it seems like a no-brainer, but there again, government, they're not always
No,
so
I
quick on
agree,
the
and I think
uptake.
that would no, and I agree with you, Sophia. I think that would absolutely address some of the quality issues that we are seeing right now,
For
right?
sure.
And it's also would help with making sure that anybody getting into this is serious enough about it,
Yeah,
Hmm.
right? Like this is not just oh, you know what, I just I couldn't do anything else, so let me just do this.
yeah.
Right.
Even as a private day home provider, I was going to continue my schooling and to get my level 3, but I couldn't because I'm not with an agency. Well, why couldn't I just bring in somebody that has a level 3 for that time for to do your practicum, right?
Correct.
Why is there no options like that? Why isn't there more choice and more options out there for providers across the board, whether you're with an agency, in a daycare center, whatever that may be? If they want us to be educated, make it so we can be educated. Like help us help you, like
Yeah.
there needs to be more choices for sure.
Yeah. I think it would be super cool if they did a program like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Even as
absolutely.
a apprentice program for like we could hire someone to cover our day home for 8 weeks and do that 8 weeks of schooling. Like there's lots more choices if they would just adapt
Yep.
the way the program runs.
Yep.
So I know we touched base on this a little bit, but when you first started, was there any possibility that the funding would run out?
No. So that's the thing because I remember reaching out to Childcare Connect and asking them for a status of because again, I mean, everybody knew that the spaces were limited.
Right.
So I did want to make sure I knew that I didn't have an issue with my Okotoks one, and so I wanted to understand where we are at. So when I reached out to Childcare Connect, and I was urged to put in a licensing application.
Yeah.
And there was no information provided on where we are with the spaces, how much is remaining, right? Like there was, and then that's really what my grouse with the provincial government at this point is that again, a choice was taken away from me, just like a
Yeah.
choice is being taken away from parents. I could have been given the choice to not open a daycare here,
Oh, exactly.
not move down this process. And I was not given that choice, regardless of the fact that I did call in and ask the question.
Yeah. That's such bullshit. It's such
Yeah,
bullshit that the
I
government
was
would just
given
let
this
that go.
I was given the standard fare. Oh, oh, if you want to put in a licensing application, I'm like, I know how to put in a licensing application. My question was more specifically, do we know where we stand on the for-profit spaces? Because
Yeah.
that is what I intend to apply for. And I was told that they had no visibility on it. And if I wanted to proceed forward, then they're happy to send me the information on
Yeah.
how and where to apply.
Honestly, someone needs to be held accountable. Like, there's somebody in the government that fucked this up royally, and they need to be
Oh,
held accountable. Like, I'm sorry, but you don't get to just make mistakes like this, cost people hundreds of thousands of dollars, possibly their livelihood, and oops,
and
I'm
walk
sorry,
away or
my
behave
bad,
like,
right?
yeah,
Like,
I'm sorry. Let's take it up with federal. Like, no, this
yeah,
is where, as everybody talks about federal, the reason I try to bring it to provincial is because we need to hold our provincial government accountable for the specific
Yeah.
issue
Oh,
or
100%.
situation we find ourselves with. And I'm not the only one who's tried to have this conversation either with a licensing officer or with Childcare Connect directly, right? I understand that licensing officers don't have all the information, and this is by no means trying to attack a specific role, right?
Oh,
This is
yeah.
just saying how poorly communicated even within that department things were.
Yeah. I mean,
Nobody seemed to know anything.
yeah, the licensing officers, even though they're not the ones that make the decisions, they still could have, on their own good conscience, said, you know what, just hold on. Just,
Right.
just a heads
Now
up.
that's
Like, there's no
right, but
reason they
that's
couldn't have
that's
done that.
provided they have the information too, right?
For
There's
sure.
nothing for us to say that they would have known. And just looking at how I'm giving them a benefit of a
Yeah.
doubt.
Oh,
I
absolutely. Yeah.
completely recognize that, only because I feel like if the communication is shoddy, typically I've seen that it's shoddy within as well as outside.
Yeah.
It's not a one way, it's just something they
Yeah.
haven't done, right?
It's a
And so,
snowball effect, right? Like it starts at the top and then it just gets
yep,
passed down little bit by little bit to each person. And then that way nobody actually is holding the majority of the responsibility. Well, it wasn't my fault
correct.
because my boss didn't tell me. And they're like, well, it wasn't my fault because my boss didn't tell me. Like it's like they're trying to pass the buck. Like, don't blame us, blame them.
Right, absolutely. But I would absolutely like to see people being held accountable for this situation, right?
Yeah.
I have very choice words other than situation to say here, but I'm trying not to. Um,
I mean,
because that's
you're welcome to say whatever you'd like.
like this is honestly a clusterfuck, right?
Yes,
Excuse my
Exactly. Yeah.
you
language
go,
there.
girl.
But
Yeah. No, it totally
honestly,
is.
this is just so I like it's amazing. Like if this was a corporate environment, somebody's head would have rolled over this.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's not okay that just because it's a public organization
Yeah.
that people should not be held responsible or accountable,
Yeah.
right?
Do you feel like on some level, if it was a male dominated industry, this would have been dealt with differently?
I don't know.
I never.
And
Yeah,
I'm
that's
being
fair.
very honest. I'm being very honest when I
Yeah.
say that, right? I don't know. Because I feel like inefficiencies and lack of skill um doesn't necessarily lean itself to a particular gender.
That's fair.
Fair.
I feel like this is just an inability and not having the skills to do stuff.
Yeah.
But what I do want to highlight is that it has definitely affected a women dominated, women run, women centric industry,
Yeah.
right? We have our governments, whether it's provincial or federal, talking about how they value small businesses, how they want to support women, women centric industries. And right now, what we are facing is really the opposite of exactly that.
Yeah. And that's where my question comes from. Would the government have mismanaged so poorly an industry that is male dominated? I just kind of feel in some way they're like it's just women. Like, whether that's how they actually feel or not, it feels very purpose. I don't know. It
And
just
that's
feels
where
that way for
like
me,
I
I
said,
guess.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
However, I do think if there were some big players involved in it and it was not a small business or small business owners who were involved, I don't think they would have done it this way.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know about the male female aspect just yet, but I can absolutely say that if this was affecting the larger people, and not to say it's not affecting them, but I always feel like they somehow get out of all of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I've got a fueling brains that's opening up like 2 blocks from me, from my center, the new center.
Yeah.
I called them up the other day, right? And because I can see construction happening. Their playground, there are people on it right now. So I called them up. I wanted to understand whether they have the grant, right? And they said, oh, yeah, we have the grant. Don't worry about it. Like, we have pre-registrations going on. And so I said, can you please double check? Because there's this whole new information that came in on May 15th. Is your location affected, the specific location being affected by it? The individual went away, called me back and said, nope, we are completely fine.
That
I
is
can see, like I said, I
interesting.
drive by that place because
Hmm.
and I can see people still constructing the playground.
Yeah,
And I'm looking at it saying, how is it that you're not affected? I don't have the answers,
yeah,
but it's making me ask that question, like what route did you guys go for you to not be affected by this?
yeah. Like, was there some selection of like, let's get the big companies, like, like the Bright Path and like all them, like,
Yeah.
let's make sure that their spaces are secured first, and then we'll go down to the other.
But then that's discrimination right
Oh,
there
100%. But I mean,
because
they're not going to
this
admit that.
particular center cannot even tell me when they're going to open. My center, I'm saying I'll
Yeah,
definitely be open on September, right? Because I know it's essentially September or earlier is what I'm thinking. But they're giving me a timeline of, oh, well, it can be anywhere from July to September.
oh
They
my
just don't
God.
know. They
Yeah,
don't know when they're going to be done, which means their license application is not in the last stages.
yeah.
They're no different than me at this point in time.
So either they have been given specific leeway by the government, or the person has no clue what's going on, and they're just,
Yes, or they've gone a nonprofit route for this particular one and they're getting it through that, or they've found a way to, I don't know, transfer. I don't know if a transfer for license is still possible, but transfer the license and then do an expansion to it.
yeah.
Because um, those seem to be the ones that they said they were still going to continue doing, right?
Hmm.
But it's interesting, right? It's a 300 kids facility that's still not open, is still under construction,
Yeah,
is absolutely saying that they're fine with it.
That's insane.
yeah. Something's off there.
Right. But I do think, like I said, I feel the biggest piece that the government needs to see is the fact that you're affecting the very communities that you have always touted to want to support.
Yeah,
It is women, it is small businesses, right? And if any other corporate entity was coming in and saying that came and said to the Alberta government that I'll create 2,000 jobs a year, is this how the government would behave with them? No, they would lay down the red carpet. They would
yeah.
give them all kinds of tax rebates. They would do everything they can because 2,000 jobs a year is not a small number.
Oh, exactly.
And that's really what this collective of operators who have been affected are going to do or will be able to do, right? Is
Yeah.
they are looking at creating 2,000 women-centric jobs. That's not a number to sneeze at.
But there again, that's why I can't help but feel, would they do this the same to a sector that is male driven?
Mm.
Are they going to do this to an industry that would create 2,000 male jobs versus, like,
Female
yeah,
women. Mm.
yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe it's just me being a little conspiracy theory thinking in there, but it seems very suspicious. Let's put it that way. The government has, like you said, gone on record saying we are supporting this female-driven industry. We're just not really. We want you to think we are. We're just going to screw them over in other ways. But on the surface, look how great we are. We're supporting women. We're just screwing them out of their life savings. Like, it's bullshit.
And the people who are affected, I mean, they're all across the board, right? Like we've been listening to so many of them in the last couple of weeks, and it's terrible. It's terrible what we're hearing, right? Just that in some cases things are so dire. People,
Yeah,
families away, families that are back home in whichever country it is, they've sold lands, they've sold their
yeah.
properties, they've put their savings together to open this one center
Oh, 100%.
all in the hopes of, the Canadian dream,
Yeah,
right? All in the hopes that it's going to be better here. All in the hopes that it's going to be better. Our family's going to have a chance at living a better life, better facilities, etc. Right? Like, I mean, again, many of the people, majority are immigrants, new or
yeah,
slightly old, doesn't matter, right? But
yeah.
everybody's trying to build that, I know we've heard of the American dream, but the Canadian dream's not dramatically different from that.
Oh, exactly. No, I totally agree. And I think it's so sad. It's so sad that this whole thing has been so much mismanaged. And especially so they gave a certain amount of number of spaces for private daycare centers and then a certain amount for not for profit. Well, the not for
Right.
profit are nowhere near. They still have 40,000 plus spaces they need to
Yep.
cover. Why, if the funding is there for them, why can it not be given to the other centers?
Sure.
There's no
Sure.
difference.
That is,
No
yeah,
difference
and that's
whatsoever.
and not-for-profit spaces don't get filled up very quickly either, right? It's difficult to get those spaces because the fundamentals of not-for-profit really is that you have to have the money to start the construction, which means you need to have large donors giving
Yeah.
you that money, or you should have. So you need, because a lot of banks don't give money or fund the
Oh,
not-for-profit
exactly.
construction, right? So
Yeah.
it takes time. It's always going to take time to get that money ready
Yeah.
and then start the construction and go on with it. But you're bang on. There's, 40,000 spaces available over there. I think our last count, we were looking at, I think this is like 10,000 spaces or so is what the affected operators is coming to on the
Yeah.
for-profit. I'm sure it's more. That's just the last number I think we were hearing. But why is it difficult to pivot?
Oh, exactly. If the money's there
Right?
for
Why
them,
would
it's
that be? It's not like you don't have the funding. It's not like you
exactly.
have to go and find the funding somewhere else. Your
Yeah.
funding is available. It is a matter of moving it across from not-for-profit to for-profit, right?
Yeah.
Again, that's a federal conversation, no question about it. That is a federal conversation. What I would absolutely like to understand, is what's the provincial government going to do? Because this specific mess is created by you.
Yeah.
The specific mess is created by you, right? This email that came out on May 15th, right? If you had managed it well, back in Jan or Feb, you could have told people that we're done.
Yeah.
And not just done, like we don't have any more spaces. Do you still want to continue? And not after they've put in money into construction or anything,
Yeah.
right? Like that's why I say the specific situation that we find ourselves with, I want to make sure that we all understand this is created by the provincial government. It's purely because of their mismanagement that we are here,
Yeah.
right? And there are two issues that we as a community of operators have to support. One is holding the provincial government accountable for what they've done. And the other one is bringing about that larger change in how the federal government is thinking about the affordability grant and who they give it to.
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of why Alberta did not sign why they didn't
The
sign on.
Seawalk,
Yeah. Why
the
they didn't.
Seawalk agreement.
Yeah. I think that's why they didn't sign on with that because for one, they knew it was a bad agreement. They knew
Yeah,
that it was not beneficial to parents or kids. And so
yeah,
they came up with this one, like this privately, but I wouldn't say this one is any better. I I don't
yeah.
think either of them are great, to be honest, but I think at least the Alberta government was like saw the bad things in the other agreement,
Yes.
which is
Yeah.
positive. And we know Danielle Smith has no issues standing up to the federal government and being like, no thanks, we don't like that, fix it. So I have to have some
And
hope
then
that she could do the same with this
And I
situation.
think I think the fact that Ontario hasn't signed on to it either, and neither has Saskatchewan.
Yeah,
And I believe the Maritimes are having, or there's some rumblings of them wanting to step back from what they've already agreed on as well,
yeah,
is is um, is positive to hear,
yeah.
only because that essentially says that this one size fit all approach is not working.
Oh, exactly. Yeah,
Right. And I think Crystal Churcher was mentioning some numbers that she was throwing out there, or she mentioned was between Alberta, Ontario, and Saskatchewan. I mean, or 70% of where the spaces lie in the provinces where the spaces lie, they're not okay with the current agreement.
yeah,
And they're asking for change collectively, right? So which
exactly.
means that the agreement is not working for the majority,
Yeah,
or if anything, the agreement is not working for a huge, astounding number of provinces and spaces, right?
yeah, exactly. And I mean, it needs to be fixed across the board. The entire program needs to be scrapped and start over. But start getting ideas from the people who work in the field, who have kids in the childcare, not these figures in government that have no idea what's going on with childcare at all, but they're trying to make these decisions. You need to get the information from the workers, from the people accessing the programs. That's how you build a quality program, right? We're the
Right.
ones that are in it. We know what's needed. We know what works, what doesn't work. And honestly, this whole push for it to be a public service for our childcare is complete bullshit. No, thank you. Nobody needs that. Having the private sector as part of it helps to create business, to create jobs, move things along far quicker, as we've seen. I mean, the nonprofit sector is not moved at all on their 40,000 spaces that they're supposed to be creating. The private sector ate them up in no time, right? So
Yeah.
having this as a public service, that's just a terrible idea. Well, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and your story.
Thank you so much for even hosting this. And I know you guys are doing everything you can to get the word out there. And I
Yeah,
really appreciate the support we're getting through you guys on this front. Thank you.
you're
Wonderful.
welcome.
Thank you so much.
So that's it for Day Home Divas this week.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Dayhome Divas, on TikTok at dayhome.divas, and join our Facebook group, Dayhome Divas.
If anyone has any topics you would like for us to cover, or if you have any questions or suggestions, you can email us at dayhomedivas@gmail.com.
And we would also appreciate if you could rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening on. It really helps the podcast move up on their charts so it gets more exposure. Hope you join us again next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.